I usually go from that kind of goal and then I work backwards to like, all right, these are all the different ways that we can convey the personality of the founder, the personality of the brand, the personality of the target audience, and just work from like there backwards. Like, have you ever done like those mazes in like magazines where you have to like do the thing? Usually I would go from like the finish line and then try to find like, all right, this is the way back to the starting line. That makes it so much easier.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mudita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. Our guest today, Julia Seraphine. She is a TEDx speaker, university guest lecturer, and social media expert. Co-founder of social media marketing agency Seraphine Digital. You know, someone who's like really using social media to promote and trying to make the world a better place. Like after I came across Julia and get to know her, I did some research and I found her TEDx speaks, and it's really inspired me in many ways. So today we're going to share many perspectives about how can you use social media not only to grow your brand, convert small clients or customer, but also to help the world and make the world a better place. So without further ado, please welcome Julia to Get Unstuck Podcast today. Hi, Julia. How are you doing?
Good. Hello, Get Unstuck Nation. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, I'm so excited because like, you know, these days people just like, okay, we have social media, we have like zero budget to start, we can start business anywhere, but we can really use betterment of it, but not really many people talk about. So I'm eager to learn more from you. But before we get there, how did you get started your entrepreneurial journey though?
Yeah, so I guess it all started when I was 9. That sounds like I'm in therapy, like, oh, it all started when I was 9. But no. So there was this site when I was a kid, and it's still pretty popular now, but it wasn't as popular back then. There was a site called Roblox. And even though I was only 9 years old, I was really into the whole buying and selling clothes and creating games on that website. And they have a native advertising tool where you can purchase advertisements on the website for in-game currency. And as a kid, that was a really like kid-friendly way to learn about digital advertising and to sort of like get my feet wet and like learn about the whole process of advertising on social media even. The whole behind the scenes was the same. I ended up really getting into like, all right, how do I get the best click-through rate? And then I was like 9, 10 years old at that point. And I was like really, really interested in it when other kids my age were more interested in like just playing on the games. And it never really left me ever since I was 9 that I felt like a natural inclination to the way that it worked. It felt like it naturally occurred to me and that I sort of understood it from like a basic level in a way that not many other people did. And I felt like, this is my talent. Like I could really shine if I were to do this for the rest of my life. And I'm lucky because not a lot of people kind of find their calling that young. So instead of sort of like just getting into the groove of school and letting my hobby pass me by, I kind of pursued it the entire time, even until I graduated high school and I started college. And I at first created a side hustle just as like a digital marketing agency all the way back in 2016 when I just started college. And that was my foray into entrepreneurship. I wanted to take the social media that I was really interested in, the advertising and all the skills that I had learned, and sort of turn that into an actual business. So at the time, I was going to a community college to get my associate's degree. And I worked with the head of the entrepreneurship department at the school. And she really taught me everything that I needed to know about entrepreneurship. And even though it was like almost 10 years ago now, it really changed me on a fundamental level that like, not only is this thing that was my hobby, like the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life, but I can actually make a business out of it. And have it be the thing that sustains my life. And that's how I got into entrepreneurship.
Wow. That's like a very clear path of like this very determined one though.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It felt like it naturally occurred to me when I was a kid. Like, hey, like this is what you should be doing. You should really do this. And I never stopped.
So how did you expand from social media? Like there are other part of media, right? So how did
Yeah.
you like expand your interest from there?
So at first, when my business was just a social media agency, it was like the only thing that I would do for clients was social media. And maybe sometimes they'd ask me like, oh, can you do this for the SEO? Oh, can you do this for PR? Because it's kind of related to social media. And over the years, just working with so many clients, it's been maybe almost 9 years now. I sort of picked up skills here and there. And then I was like, you know what? I know a lot about this already. Why don't I go through the effort to actually formally learn these things so that I can offer them to my clients on more than just oh, can you help me with this kind of level? I wanted it to be like, all right, this is like the social media plan. And then these are all the other digital marketing plans that we're going to do at the same time. And I had to learn a lot. Like there was a learning curve between social media marketing and then digital marketing in general, and especially PR. Like, sure, there's a large overlap between the two sort of subjects, but after really going through the effort over the years to learn it myself, to have others teach me about it, to take classes and courses and get certifications, I really wanted it to be a deliberate effort that like I become so good at it that I can offer this to my clients with a clear conscience, like, hey, like this is something that I'm genuinely good enough at that I could offer it to. And even when there's more in-depth projects and I have to partner up or I have to work together with another team that the client requests, then sure, it really like helps broaden the scope of the things that we can really do for the clients. But I feel like learning about all of that really helped me feel secure in owning an agency and offering different services along with social media.
You mentioned already that it expands to public relation, and also I also see in your website about reputation management. Can you share with us like how these three areas, social media management, PR, and also reputation management, play along with brand management in total?
So all of those things sort of tie together, that like they encompass the entire online and outward facing appearance of a business, especially a lot of businesses that are run primarily on the internet. Like say it's e-commerce, they don't really have like a brick and mortar like business. They only have their website. All of their outward facing marketing is the entire face of the company. Like in real life, like you go outside, you go to a brick and mortar store, you talk to the cashier, you talk to the manager. Online, you don't really have that kind of personal interaction. And what marketing does, especially digital marketing, social media, public relations, those are all sort of things that you can see about a brand without actually going and seeing them in person. So when you hear about a brand on the radio, when you hear about someone that's my client, like on a podcast, or like me being on a podcast, even like I don't have a brick and mortar location, but people can sort of meet me through social media, through public relations, through digital marketing, and sort of get a feel of like my expertise, my personality, who I am. It really puts a face to the name. So all of those things really work together to sort of give a view of like, all right, this is the brand outside the website. Even though I can't meet them in person, this is them.
Talking about personal brand right now, what's the difference in your opinion between influencer and thought leader?
So I like to think of influencers as more sort of down to earth, like they could be your friend if you met them in real life. They could be someone your age. They could be a peer. They could be someone who gives good recommendations to you that you can trust, especially if they recommend, say, like skincare, beauty products. You can trust them. And their outward facing social media definitely gives the feel of more like a real person, like a down to earth, sort of chill person that you could interact with, that they could be like your peer. A thought leader, however, is much more of like, oh, this is someone that I look up to. This is someone whose voice commands a lot of respect. This is someone who has a level of prestige, especially on social media, say because they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of followers, they have a large audience. And they have a lot to offer that audience, especially sharing their opinions, their advice, and giving sort of a perspective into different industries. A thought leader definitely doesn't feel like your peer per se. but they feel like someone that you can listen to, that you can trust, and that you could get advice from. So if I were on LinkedIn, for example, like everyone there is a thought leader. There's not really like influencers on LinkedIn, but there's definitely influencers on Instagram. Like there's so many people my own age. Like I'm 26 right now. They're all 26 over there, especially in my algorithm because it's like recommended for you. But a lot of the influencers are like closer in age to their own demographic than, say, thought leaders.
Oh, since you mentioned that, we were talk about this offline, but then like when we talk about social media these days, people trying to be omnipresent, right? Be everywhere because like we want to be found every places as possible to like expand the online spaces. However, how can we really know which platform exactly right for us to find more clients or to being more influenced towards the right audience?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, what I like to do with my clients is I just go through sort of a market analysis of not only who their existing customers are, but also who their target is. So who exactly do they think would benefit from their product or service the best? And then we sort of break it down. I'll go through an example of one of the clients that I've had recently that I'm still working with now. But they were, say, like a financial company, and they wanted to share advice about stocks, about finances with their audience. So I looked at their followers, and they're primarily male. They're primarily ages 25 and up, and they're primarily interested in finance. As one would expect, they offered services that like people that age would be interested in. So it makes sense that that's their target audience. So then I sort of break down that kind of analysis to like, all right, well, these are the target demographics and the primary demographics of these social media sites, say Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and see sort of what the audience size is on each of those platforms. And say like, hey, all right, this is the best place that you can be to sort of maximize your engagement with the very specific audience that you have. And you really get like the most bang for your buck, as opposed to like, all right, we have to post on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We have to post on all those sites as well as LinkedIn and Instagram and like everything else really. But it feels like a waste to sort of cater content and put man hours into marketing on sites where you're not really reaching the specific people anyways. It'd be like a really uphill battle just to try to get like a bunch of the same followers on Facebook as it would to get the very specific followers on LinkedIn. So when I recommend that kind of thing to my clients, I usually recommend it based on the existing data that's already there. And then we're able to break it down and really find like, all right, this is the very specific place that we have to be. And this is where we're going to get the most bang for our buck.
And like those blue check, the verify account, is that really important to have?
Oh, especially for larger brands, it is. When you're just starting out, it could feel like really daunting thinking about like, oh, I want to get verified so people know that this is my legitimate business. But for larger brands, it comes a lot more naturally. I find it's a lot easier for brands that already have a lot of publicity to get verified, but it is important no matter the size of your business. So if I'm working with a client that, say, is just starting out their social media journey, I'd say, all right, we can help you get verified, but first we got to build up our followers. But if there's already an existing brand that has like a lot of followers, they have like a lot of press, they have a lot of PR, I could say, all right, we'll just go straight to me helping you get verified using the existing PR and followers that you have. And my agency actually offers that as a service where we can take like the existing materials that you have and aggregate them together and then create a submission for verification, not like the Meta Verified where you pay like $14 a month, but the actual kind of verified blue check mark that you get when you have not only like a large following, but also when you have a lot of press surrounding the business, that they would feel compelled to allow you to get verified. So I do work with clients of different sizes on that. And especially if I have a client that wants to get verified, but first they need some work on PR, social media, digital marketing, I'm willing to go through that entire process with them on a per project basis.
Since you mentioned that, so how long does it take for someone to like build up the public relation like appearance, let's say, to have a strong PR present approximately?
man. For me,
It's a consistent work somehow after I hear you.
oh yeah. Like for me, it took like a little bit of time, honestly. For other brands, not so much. It really depends on how interesting your business is, like how easy it is to get people interested in it. Versus like I always say it's like there's such a small audience for this, like how would I get this in front of different people? It really depends. But for me specifically, since there's already so many people who are interested in influencers, social media experts, it was really easy for me after I found like my sweet spot. So after working for like 4 or 5 years, I was finally able to find a formula to pitch myself as a brand, just using myself as an example. And I was able to get the podcast invitations, TV invitations, radio, university guest lecture invitations, and even the TEDx invitations. Although I think one thing that really did make it easier for me, and this is not going to be the case anymore, but back when COVID hit and everything was locked down, people really started looking for remote experts that could sort of like be in their television show through like Skype back then or Zoom. And I was able to be like, all right, well, I can go remotely. This is my edge. I can show up remotely, even though a lot of the other social media experts can't. And I suppose the lesson that can be learned from that tale is use whatever resources you can get to your advantage for PR, and it won't take nearly as long as it did for me.
Oh, so you need to track the trend and also like being adaptable all the time. Wow. This game is a very long-term game to play though.
Yeah. Like if you hire an agency, obviously it gets a lot easier because you have people that have worked with different brands in the past. They might have contacts with different publications. Like, for instance, like my agency already has a lot of people that they could pitch to, like, hey, we have a story you might be interested in. And that's the case for a lot of other agencies too. So it could take a long time to do it yourself, like I did when I was just like a small agency back in the day. Or you could partner with an agency and start getting PR like ASAP.
Since you mentioned that, there are many elements that involve to do this brand present event. Like thinking about a brand that is still small, let's say, when they started to think about, okay, we maybe need to hire an agency, this is the right time. When is that time happen? Usually.
Honestly, I get most of my clients when they've reached the point that like, all right, all hands on deck. We're so busy providing our products or services that we can't do our own marketing. The Facebook hasn't been active in like a year. We have no social media presence whatsoever because we're so busy doing like the primary service of the business itself. That's usually the time when it's right to reach out to an agency, because then you can take all the success that you have and really compound it by investing the money from the business into bringing in more hands and working together with an agency to get more customers, followers, clients, and different eyes on the business. And I would say, especially businesses that they've noticed, like, all right, we're doing well, but we've kind of hit a wall that, like, if we were marketing, this is like how we would get our next batch of customers. I would say that's another like really big indicator of like, all right, we should hire an agency now. And hiring an agency oftentimes is a lot cheaper than bringing in staff, even like bringing in one entry level employee who could like do the social media or create content or just start engaging with people on social media. That usually costs more than hiring an agency. So for the cost of an agency, like instead of hiring like that person, you just get like an entire team. So it's like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 people for the price of one.
How it's like to start outsource the marketing part to the agency versus doing it by yourself?
Oh man, I've worked with other agencies in the past for our marketing at the agency, and I personally find it like kind of luxurious. This is like, I don't know, me sort of like flaunting like, oh, having an agency is the best. But it feels like, all right, like I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to focus on this. I don't have to waste my own time doing this. These people got it, and I don't have to worry about that. I can just focus on my own business instead of doing like the marketing for the business and getting new customers. It feels like, oh, this is done for me. Like if you ever been to a fancy gas station where someone else comes to pump the gas, it feels like that. Like you don't have to get out of the car on a cold day, and you don't have to waste your time with all that extra marketing stuff. You could just have someone do it for you for a little bit of extra money. It makes life so much better.
That's kind of weird, because like over here, at least where I am based right now in Thailand, we do have someone doing that for you.
Really? Where I am
The gas
in
station.
Connecticut,
Yeah.
like,
You have to do it
that's
yourself.
like only in the fancy parts of Connecticut can people come out and pump your gas, and you gotta tip them. And like sometimes they're dressed like fancy for some reason. I'm like, this is luxurious for me. They don't have
I
that.
know, right?
here.
Like, yeah, when I first saw it, when I first came across that, I'm like, oh, so we're living in Asia. That's actually luxury.
Yeah, it is. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, that's kind of fun fact.
That's very fun.
So one other thing that I came across about people spend time on social media, but also the brands want to be like more mindfully spending time on social media because it's also give impact, like what is your thought towards when you create the media strategy for a brand, like how it's related to the brand strategy itself or business goal that would help them make any change or something, like how that works?
Yeah, so usually what I like to do in that case when I'm making the strategy for the client and I'm really trying to tie it into their existing brand marketing or their existing customer base and sort of combine that with like their desired target. I usually first like to sort of suss out like what sort of personality does the brand have and what personality would the potential customers really vibe with. Like how do I convey a brand authentically online without making them lose touch with their existing target audience? I usually go from that kind of goal and then I work backwards to like, all right, these are all the different ways that we can convey the personality of the founder, the personality of the brand, the personality of the target audience, and just work from like there backwards. Like, have you ever done like those mazes in like magazines where you have to like do the thing? Usually I would go from like the finish line and then try to find like, all right, this is the way back to the starting line. That makes it so much easier, especially when it's like being really deliberate with the marketing and being really deliberate with conveying the brand's personality. It's just so much easier to work backwards.
What about when the result that your clients get is like over expected,
Oh
like
man, usually we're
how
like
you
celebrating.
control that, like not control, I mean how that reflect the work that you do. I mean that's kind of like impactful actually, how strong media is.
Yeah, a lot of the time I work with clients and we come up with a long-term plan, say like 6 months, 7 months, even like a whole year in advance. And if I'm able to really hit the nail on the head early on and get like a good running start with them, and we're able to sort of exceed expectations, like, oh, we've hit these KPIs, these markers, like well in advance of when we were supposed to. Usually the brand is like, oh, let's go. The owners are happy, the marketing departments are happy. Everyone is like thrilled usually if we get much better results than we expect. And a lot of the time that kind of success comes from being like really potent early on and not only doing like a good content strategy where we post content and it resonates with the target audience, but also an engagement campaign where we engage with the target audience, we engage with the current followers, we engage with different verticals where the target audience would be that like is related to the brand itself. If we're really able to hit a sweet spot in that, I've seen like 50 to 80% growth, like well beyond what was expected, like months in advance, just from doing those things combined. And usually like being very deliberate with the marketing is usually the cause of that.
Oh, so that actually save a lot of cost then.
Yeah, it does. Usually clients bring me on longer term because they're happy. They're like, oh, keep it up, please.
Yeah.
We're going to be like the top of the industry.
Usually how long like the contract works working with you? Like
Yeah,
at least
so
the starting contract, like how long you usually start working with clients?
yeah, so shorter term projects, which are usually just like all right, revamp the social media, go through the branding, make it look much nicer, and help us come up with a strategy that our marketing department can use. Usually that's something as short as like 3 months. I've worked on very short projects on like a month by month basis, but I try not to do that so much anymore because I feel like planning out long term is much more effective. Although on average, I try to shoot for maybe 6 months at a time per project, per client. And then usually they bring me on longer term because they're so happy.
Of course. You talk about what can social media companies really do for the world.
Yeah.
Can you share about that? That this is one of your TED Talk. I will put a link below though. That's actually very impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was my second TED Talk. I ended up doing that remotely because it was during COVID times, but I did it in the comfort of my office at the time. It was so nice. Anyhow, off topic. Social media companies, they use a lot of data, and sure that doesn't seem like it does a lot to the environment. It seems like, oh, that's just happening in the computer. Who cares? But then you think about the impact that like I apologize. Companies like they have these giant data warehouses that take up like miles, and they use all these cooling systems like fans, hydro cooling, different methods of keeping their computers cool, especially during hotter months. Those things eat up so much energy. They generate pollution. They end up taking the areas where they are. Sometimes the environment becomes worse because of those data warehouses. And the companies usually try to put on a good face, like, oh, we offset our carbon emissions by 70% this year. But then you realize that's kind of vacuous because then they create other kinds of pollution instead. So it's like, oh, what was the benefit of this? Like they pretend like they're doing a really great job on the environment. And then in reality, they're just making other kinds of pollution instead. Or they're moving to different areas in the world where regulations are different. And then they're trying to get away with as much as they can. So even though they put on such a great face, they're not really. And what they really could be doing to sort of offset the actual pollution is using environmentally friendly methods to generate power, such as solar power, hydroelectric power from dams. They could be using geothermal power, even though it's not as great. It could still be used in conjunction with other green methods to get more for the environment. And especially like wind turbines also could generate so much energy, especially if they're put in the right place where there's a lot of wind already. Using different green methods of generating all that power that they need for their warehouses really could do a lot of good for the environment.
And how we can use social media to like at least solve this problem then?
Honestly, social media, it feels like an extension of like this world. It feels like, all right, there's like the real world and then there's social media. It feels like a completely different world, but everyone is there somehow. I feel like using all the eyes that you could get on social media to spread a message that, hey, like there's different things that we could do for the environment that would actually have like a real positive impact instead of a pretend one. If you just make people aware of different methods using all the eyes that you could get on social media, I think that that's how you could use social media to really make a difference.
So until now, in case anyone want to work with you, where can they reach out to you then?
So we have a new website. It is seraphinedigital.com, spelled the same as my last name, and then digital.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. My name is Julia Seraphine, and the link for that should hopefully be in the description of this. But I would really love to add everyone on LinkedIn. I really like to talk about social media or digital marketing. And I even offer a free 15-minute analysis of your social media if you book a call through my website in the link provided in the description of this. So thank you for asking. That's where you can find me.
So I will make sure that all the links that you mentioned will be around here in the show note as well as in the description. So everyone, follow Julia. And yeah, you can see she shares a lot of content that would help you to grow social media online though. And if you're interested to work with agency, just reach out to Julia. So thank you so much, Julia, for joining the UNSTUCK podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure to be here, honestly. It's so chill. It's such a nice vibe. And I really enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what we have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.